Okay, we are gonna officially start. Firstly, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Shark Side webinar series. I want to thank everyone for their time this afternoon, for just lending us your ears to join this really exciting discussion with such powerhouses in the shark conservation, specifically the education and research space. The Shark Side webinar series kicks off with a discussion on education and outreach, and specifically, we will be talking about the wins, challenges, and critical gaps that need to be addressed in this space here. So we are joined by three women in the shark marine education space. Karen Merritt from the Save Our Seas Shark Education Center, Sopumelela Goma from the Shark Research Unit, and Taryn Van Neel from Shark Spotters. I'm Jamila Jana. I will be the facilitator today. I'm the communications officer at Shark Spotters. And I do want to, before we kick in and start the conversation, I would like to say I think everyone's mics should be automatically off. But if by some mistake or instance your mic does come on, just be aware of it and put it off. And then if you do have any questions, please ask them in the chat below. And then once all the presentations are done, we will have an open discussion and you can address all your questions to the speakers. So Pooh might have to leave early. So we will, when we do the question and answer, we will start with her in case she has to leave. But if she doesn't, then we'll continue the discussion as is. So I will introduce our very first speaker, who is Karen Merritt. She is the education coordinator at the Save Our Seas Foundation Shark Education Center. A nature conservationist by training, she discovered her vocation for environmental education as an intern working for the city of Cape Town. Over the past 10 years, she has built on this experience as a senior environmental educator, environmental education program coordinator, and learning and communications designer. Karen's passion lies in facilitating learning experiences that connect people to the natural world, cultivate a sense of place, foster curiosity, and encourage exploration. So give a round of applause for Karen. And Karen, please do share your presentation and you can take the stage.
Wonderful.
Yes, sorry, Karen. Justin, yes, you are muted.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much, Jamila, for that introduction and for organizing this webinar. Yeah, I'm really excited to present and share with everyone here, as well as also learn from the other speakers as well. So yeah, thank you very much. So as Jamila mentioned, I work at the Save Our Seas Foundation Shark Education Center, and we are situated along the False Bay coastline in Cork Bay in Cape Town, and we are directly opposite a marine protected area as well. So we're really, really lucky to have a center as well as the marine space for us to conduct our educational activities. And our work focuses on both shark and marine education, because the reality is that these things are intrinsically linked. And yeah, so for us, it's somewhat difficult to separate. So a lot of the time, the education is focused on both of those things. Yeah, so as the Shark Education Center, our vision is to foster lasting positive ocean connections while working towards a healthy marine ecosystem where people and sharks coexist. And we recognize the reality that healthy marine ecosystems are multi-layered and dimensional. They don't just look a specific way. And especially when one's considering like the human dynamic as well, it's a reality that a healthy marine ecosystem includes human connection within that ecosystem, human relationships, and those connections don't all look the same. The connections as humans that we have include connections at various different levels. So be it spiritual, cultural, physical, emotional, economic, there's so many different connections. And we feel like it's very important to recognize that. And if we're wanting to work towards maintaining healthy marine ecosystems where people and sharks coexist, we need to be able to recognize how they interplay as well. And with these different connections, we also realize that the connections for each individual is different, and they have different starting points and different paths. When we want to include people in that marine education space or in the marine space, we have seen that that pathway into that marine space doesn't all look the same. So just moving into some of the challenges that we've sort of picked up through our work is a realization that when it comes to both the sharks and the ocean space, that there are misconceptions and fear associated with those things. Fear of the ocean, potentially of drowning, fear that sharks are targeting humans. And a lot of these stem from the fact that we don't necessarily have a lot of access to resources or access to ocean spaces. Specifically in Cape Town itself, the reality is that even sometimes communities that are based very close to the coast don't always have a strong physical connection with the ocean because they aren't always able to access it. And we've also found that sometimes language barriers exist. So in South Africa and in Cape Town, we have various different languages that are spoken, and not all ocean and shark related content is available in various different languages. And so sometimes there can be misunderstandings or misinterpretations of information as well. Some of the other challenges that we've realized is also identification of needs. So realizing that because the different needs are so sort of nuanced, and that every sort of community or individual may have different needs, that it's really important, is important to take care when it comes to identifying what those needs are and finding ways to meet them where they're at. And so I started off with the challenges because I feel like it was probably a good thing to get, it's nice to kind of think of the challenges and then move into what we're also doing to help to overcome those challenges. So when it comes to shark and marine education, what we've found as a team is how important it is to be using local ecosystems as an introduction to the ocean and the marine space. As an example, I spoke about the fact that we have the rocky shore, which is just across from our center. And for us, that is key in forming those connections. Sometimes learners coming to the center it might be the first time they're interacting with a rocky, or the first time they're visiting a rocky shore, the first time that they are meeting certain marine species and being able to touch and engage. And so using the rocky shore, or even our kelp forests, as a way to introduce learners to the marine environment and to sharks as well is critical. And also in reference to first-time experiences, it's like the first-time experiences of meeting particular species. So as an example, we have a touch pool, and the reality is a lot of the learners that come through the center, for instance, when they interact with those animals, it's something that for them is a huge learning experience, not just because of the fact that they're learning about animals, but also because they are, bringing those animals into their reality as well. And our team has noticed as well that even though there are misconceptions and fears associated with the marine environment, with the ocean, and relating to sharks, what is amazing that through the power of education, there is a sparked increase and interest and curiosity around those topics. So sometimes there are misconceptions that exist, and the learners then come into the space, the educators, ask them questions about why those misconceptions might exist, where they've heard certain stories from, and being able to create a safe space for them to also, unpack those misconceptions. And it's amazing sometimes seeing that transition to all of a sudden they're a learner saying, no, sharks are really bad, they're scary, they're dangerous, to all of a sudden asking the most questions and being absolutely fascinated by the animal. And so that is always really incredible to see. And another one of the wins that we've experienced as well is understanding that when it comes to the journey that learners are taking and where they are, is to actually find out where they are, meet them there, and continue that learning journey with them. Knowing that not everybody's going to be in the same place, and connecting with them with care, and being able to build on that learning together. And so when it comes to the critical gaps that we feel also need to be addressed, as a Shark Centre, we believe that it's critically important to bridge gaps between humans, the ocean, and marine life. And that is, be it in the physical space, so finding ways to bring learners to the ocean, even if it's visiting the rocky shores, or if they're not able to visit to the rocky shore, to bring them to the centre so that they can at least interact with the education space. If they aren't able to come to the centre, for us to find ways where we can then go to them. So it's understanding that there may be barriers that are in place, but also acknowledging the fact that there are ways to overcome that. And then also focusing on also building as well. So not only introducing learners to the marine environment, but as sort of initial step, but also seeing how that can be built over time as well. So the importance of longer term interactions, and being able to facilitate positive ocean experiences. It is incredibly important for our learners to have fun and to feel engaged and feel inspired, to spark curiosity in their learning. Acknowledging that it's not just about the transfer of knowledge, but it's also about strengthening all of those connections. And we've also realized that it is really important for us to listen and learn as well. So we might have a certain idea of what sort of success in education looks like, but what's really important is that the learners that we engage with need to be part of that learning journey. And so for us to be able to listen to them and learn from them helps us as an education team build on our work. And also the importance of making sure that resources are available. So if it's resources in various different languages or meeting different audience needs. So as an example, with the Shark Centre, we've got more intensive programs, which are courses that may span, over 10 weeks, where we engage with learners once a week. And as an example, introduce them into snorkeling and basic free diving along our coastline. And for us, that's really fantastic to build that lasting connection with the ocean, but knowing that not everybody might need the same ocean experience. So for us as well, having resources available online, or being able to welcome visitors to the centre to explore more about our local marine environments and sharks. Just really looking at ways where we are helping to meet those needs, and realizing that not everybody's learning journey looks the same. So through our work, what we're trying to do is then, create that healthy marine ecosystem where there are more people who are directly involved and have formed connections within that marine space, because we know that for us to have the healthy marine ecosystems, everybody needs to be included. So for us, we are trying to find all the ways that we can to bring everybody, to invite everybody into that space and provide the opportunities for them to engage and be part of the healthy marine ecosystem. And so even though this is not necessarily a gap, it is very critical, and that is the importance of educators. So I'm very lucky to work with an incredible team of educators who are hugely passionate and care deeply about the marine environment, and also feel really strongly about providing opportunities for learners and people to connect with the marine space. And I think that is that's where the magic truly happens. So historically, when it comes to environmental education, there have been negative perceptions in the past about how, oh, it's fun and games, that's, somebody gets to hang out with children and have fun, and that's all that it's about. But the role that educators play in a formal sense, but also that each of us as individuals play as educators, be it with our families, our friends, be it with our community, the communities that we're part of, is so important because of that passion and the care as well with which you engage and share information, because that's also where a lot of the change and sort of the shift in perceptions happen, is that through those caring conversations, through knowing that, there is a safe space for you to engage and discuss and learn, that it becomes it becomes a place where everybody can learn together and be inspired by each other, and ultimately be included in that marine space where sharks and humans can coexist in a healthy ecosystem. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Karen. I think that was such a lovely presentation. Something that really stood out for me was in the addressing the gap section and just the listening and learning. And I think part of, addressing a lot of global trauma when it comes to sharks, whether it's adults and kids, also does take some listening and a sense of co-creation as well. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. We are now going to go to our next speaker, Sophumelela Qoma, who has a very impressive biography. I do apologize for cutting it down a little bit, but to keep with time, I will be cutting it down. So Sophumelela Qoma is part of the Shark Research Unit, and she is a dynamic and passionate mentor and ocean conservationist based in Mossel Bay, South Africa. Her dedication to marine life and youth development is evident through her various roles and initiatives. As the co-owner of the Shark Research Unit, Sophumelela is deeply involved in scientific research and conservation efforts aimed at protecting shark populations and their habitats. In addition to the work that she does with sharks, she also founded the iOcean Investment Trust. Through this organization, she mentors young people, guiding them on their journey to become transformational leaders. Her mentorship is rooted in empowering the next generation to take active roles in conservation and leadership, ensuring a sustainable future for both the environment and society. She is also an integral part of the African Protected Areas Congress Network. This group is dedicated to involving young people in policy writing, decision-making processes related to protected areas in South Africa. Protected areas just in Africa. She is also the youth ambassador for African Penguin Now movement, and she champions the causes for African penguins, working tirelessly to ensure their survival. Everyone, please welcome and clap for Sophumelela Qoma.
Okay, there we go. Can you confirm that you can see the presentation? Yes, okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamila. Thank you so much for that introduction. That was amazing. And thank you for having me here. It's honestly an honor to come and speak to everyone through this webinar. All right, so let me dive into it. Today, I'm going to be focusing on three main things. I'm hoping that I will inspire you through this presentation. I didn't want to bring facts or anything like that. I trusted that the other two ladies will do that. So let's get into a little bit of foundation. So misconceptions and what causes them. Let's start with what is meant when we talk about misconceptions. So these are views and opinions based on faulty thinking or understanding, or due to the majority of information that was presented at the time, which created these perceptions. We find ourselves attempting to fight to correct past generational faults, which they also made based on the information that was available to them. For instance, your director Steven let me say his name properly, Spielberg, expressed his remorse for making Jaws in 1975. That still has an impact, a negative impact today. On the other hand, the likes of Dr. David Urbett, which testified that Jaws was one of those movies that fueled his love to studying the sharks, who is now devoted his life to studying the lost sharks, and to date he has discovered 50 species. So basically, these things happen through the information that is given at the time, but because of what is fueling the people, like the understanding that people have at that time, it will direct if it's going to be a negative impact or a positive impact. So misconceptions are based on opinions and views that the information and perception created due to the information that's presented at the time. So how do we change this, or how do we attempt to change this? I believe we first focus on our oikos, which is our circle. Then we move to a global stage. So we get into this story is the key to impact. I've always believed that magnifying people's stories is the way for us to actually get into the ocean space, and get more people rallying and speaking positively about it. So we need to be always authentic with our stories, and we need to create a safe space. For me, for instance, this is a story that I always start with when I engage within SRU or iOcean, because I truly believe in the power of story. So for me, I could not swim up until 2019. I started 2019 to swim, learn to swim. And it was a very paralyzing journey at the beginning. As much as I would be in the water that is, knee deep, but I would still be so scared because I carry so much stories within me that were told by my grandparents, by my parents, and it was truly in me as much as I wanted to. So we need to be very authentic in how we tell the stories, because for me at the time, watching people swim and dive and snorkel and all of that made me feel like, there must be something wrong with me. So I looked for those authentic stories that are being told out there. This is okay, sorry. So what is your why? For me, this is my why. To see this beautiful image right here, kids in the water, just being free and playing and fearless. My why is seeing those faces. These kids also hold so many stories within them, but through the education that we've created, through the information that we brought to them, through the joyous freedom, and for them seeing someone that looks like them, um, you know, um, being in the water with them really had a huge impact. We come to representation, which leads to empowerment. Walking this journey to diving was hard. When I started, I was surrounded by those that did not share the same mindset and understood the crippling fear and where it was coming from. Those that thought were helping but only instilled the fear more. Those that got frustrated because they believed that I could do it, but did not understand why I would fall anxious and have restless nights just before I dive. And this changed when I was surrounded by those who spoke the same language. Let me unpack. Those that spoke the same language for me meant that they understood the stories my body passed on. They understood the stories that were passed on. Those that share the same stories based on culture, those that experienced this crippling fear, those that understood what was happening to my mind every time I go into the ocean. And because of that, I developed strength that is possible, that everything is possible, and I am not alone in this feeling, which allowed me to be unstoppable. Understanding your why will lead you to your tribe. Because of that, I was able to pass the baton. And now we are able to see this transformation of people that see other people doing what was not, shown or seen before. This is just an example of what we've seen for us in SRU and iOcean. Kids that started from, just looking at the ocean and tremble or cry because of fear. And those kids now are diving. Kids now that are exploring careers within the ocean space. And for us, it's not just about, creating kids that will be in the space, but we creating conservation conscious people that are conscious about the nature that's around them. And that is the power of magnifying stories for me. For me, for instance, when we look at, let's talk about something simple as plastic pollution and how to reduce that. For me, I might be able to recycle and use the blue bag or whatever. Another person that's in the rural areas, they don't have that system, but they recycle in their own ways. And that's for me the power of magnifying people's stories and listening to people, as Taryn said, listening to people as well, and see that people are, nature conscious. It's just this has been presented in a in one way, and now we need to start exploring other ways so that people feel empowered, and that they know that every action that they do matters. I want to finish with the story of this little girl. This little girl was part of a program that we were doing, and she could not swim. She was scared to, I don't know how to describe it to you, but she was stiff when it came to the ocean. You could see her heart once it, but the fear literally paralyzed it. And this is just after, for me, I went through that. So because I went through that process, I was able to speak to her in her language, first of all, and I was able to speak to her in a manner which I understand what you're going through, and I went through this, and I will take you through this route. And because of that, at the end of it, she could not, and this is, don't think this is days or whatever. This is just after an hour and a half of being in the water with her. She literally went back and forth in the water. She was free, because she felt safe, and she didn't want to get out of the water. And for me, that's the power of walking the journey and telling your story as authentic as possible, because you are empowering someone. Someone empowered me to be able to do this. And therefore, if we can continuously tell these authentic stories, and this has nothing to do with race, or anything like that, it just be authentic on why are you in the space, why do you love this. You will find the people that share the same mindset. That's why I'm saying tell what is your story, because once you tell your story, you find your tribe, and you will be empowering those people. I hope this was a little bit of an inspiration on, what you are doing is more than enough. And that's why I was saying focus on your oikos, and that will tremble into the global stage. Thank you so much.
Ooh, thank you so much, Sopu. That was definitely inspiring. And I think I just generally cannot add any more to what you've added in your closing. I think telling your story is so important, and you telling your story, I think, has inspired and moved so many of us in this webinar right now. I would like to move on to last but not least, Taryn Van Neal, who is the education manager at Sharktober, and she brings nearly a whopping 15 years of experience in environmental education and conservation. Her expertise spans both marine and nature conservation across all provinces in South Africa. Taryn is deeply passionate about uplifting communities through education, skills development, and environmental stewardship. A champion for innovation, Taryn loves implementing systems that streamline education, making learning more accessible and engaging for everyone. Her knack for turning complex scientific concepts into relatable lessons inspire audiences of all ages to connect and protect the natural world. Through hands-on activities, community initiatives, she empowers individuals to become active stewards of their environment. When she's not engaging with the public about the importance of sharks, you can find her cuddling her cute dog, Ugo, who firmly believes he's a shark himself. Taryn often jokes that Ugo is her shark sidekick, always ready for a swim or a nap while dreaming of underwater adventures. With Taryn's unique blend of professionalism, passion, and a touch of humor, we're in for an inspiring and enjoyable session today. Please give a round of applause for Taryn, and Taryn, the stage is yours.
Oh, thank you so much, Jamila. Right, thank you everyone, and I'm so excited to be part of the discussion. So I am the education manager for Sharktober, and let me share my screen. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Okay. So, as I mentioned, Taryn Van Neal from Sharktober, the education manager, and I have a huge passion for environmental education. It is my life story, and I am definitely a firm believer in uplifting the community when it comes to education, whether it be marine or terrestrial. I am an absolute fanatic about engaging people, but specifically not just engaging people around the natural environment, but also in terms of how we go about doing that. So my topic for this presentation is looking at sharks matter, and we all, I mean, I'm preaching to the converted, I think, yeah, all the attendees. So sharks do definitely matter, and there is definitely a critical need for effective education and outreach. So I'll be looking at the importance of shark education and the innovative strategies being used to engage the public and drive positive change for sharks. Okay, so let me start by saying why shark education matters. And if I look back many years, there was a lot of discussion around education not being actual conservation. And I've heard this many times and before, and I strongly have to agree against that, because there's one threat when it comes to sharks and shark population is perception. And we're talking about misconceptions and we're talking about perceptions in our discussions today and earlier from the speakers. So it's important for us to look at sharks, and the importance in marine ecosystem. We have to start somewhere. And so, yes, shark education is vital. Sharks are essential to the health of our oceans. We know this. As apex predators, they maintain the balance of marine life. But of course, again, the misconceptions around sharks is such an idea that they are mindless killers. People think they are monsters, and particularly the youth. So these myths can hinder conservation efforts. And as if you're not aware, the Sharktober is looking at the implementing responsible beach safety methods within not only Cape Town, but within the Western Cape. And so these myths can hinder our conservation efforts. And it's crucial that we provide accurate information to foster understanding and advocacy for these magnificent creatures. So if we look at education, particularly shark conservation, shark education, we look at influencing behavior, and it's all around influencing behavior. It's very tricky in a sense where you're engaging with the public and trying to tell them a little bit about sharks, and they understand sharks in terms of what you're trying to convey to them, but changing their behavior and how they feel about sharks, it isn't easily said than done. So in terms of the education, the methodology and the approaches when educating about human wildlife conflict, particularly with sharks, is very crucial for several reasons. And one thing, if you look at it, is the targeted message that we're trying to look at. And so different communities have unique perspective and experiences with sharks. And so tailoring a message to address specific concerns, beliefs, and as well as cultural context can foster better understanding and acceptance around these magnificent species. Also, it's about building trust. So if you're engaging with the public or communities in a respectful, but as well as a transparent manner, it helps build trust of the public. So tailoring a message, when we feel like people, when people feel their concerns are being heard, or their concerns around why they fear sharks are being heard, they are more likely to engage with conservation efforts. Also, if we look at fact-based education, so misinformation is prevalent regarding sharks, and of course their behaviors as well. And specific education methodologies and approaches ensure that the information is accurate, scientific backed, and effectively dispels myths around sharks. So one I've mentioned earlier about behavioral change, and effective education strategies can really, really influence behavior. And so by providing practical solutions to mitigate conflict, such as our B-Shark Smart safety tips for beachgoers or sustainable fishing practices, communities can learn to coexist with sharks more safely. And then if you get other things as such as stakeholder involvement, involving stakeholders in education, that will benefit both sharks and people, monitoring and evaluation, doing education, we're very big on monitoring and evaluation. But also one thing I need to also address when it comes to various education methodologies and approaches is looking at crisis management. And so areas where shark incidents, or as people say, shark attacks do occur, or conflicts have occurred in certain communities or areas, having a clear approach can also help manage community fears and tensions. So promoting a calm and informed response helps with improving conservation efforts, and also just helps the fear that's generated for the public when it comes to shark incidents that do take place. Okay, so in terms of looking at our mission at Shark Spotters, and particularly for education, our primary goal revolves around shark conservation and community engagement. We're a very community-orientated organization, so we believe that education is a powerful tool and that drives research as well as advocacy. So informing communities, we can work together to protect our oceans and of course the vital species that habitat in. All right, so when we look at shark education today, Corin spoke earlier also about the WINS and the WINS within the Shark Education Center. But so if we look at the WINS, we've looked at, for many years, of course, people had misconceptions around sharks. They are man-eaters, they're out to kill humans. But over time, and especially now in the generation, people are a little bit more open-minded, and you find a lot of people more engaging in terms of marine education. But at the same time, people feel more comfortable learning about these unknown species that they don't know much about, and they spend time in the ocean. So over the years, few people's perceptions and behaviors have changed compared to how it used to be before, not knowing much about these species. Many of the challenges is definitely your misconceptions, and also the negative, of course, the negative stereotypes about sharks. And one thing I have to address as well as is the the lack of accessible of educational resources when it comes to shark education. And many of the challenges as well is the limited funding associated with shark education particularly, or just marine education as a whole. And so these are the various challenges that we do find within this particular space. Some of the critical gaps that we look at is we need to have more comprehensive and engaging shark education programs. There are only a few taking place and not specifically and directly linked to shark education. And so there is a need for us to reach a wider audience and inspire change to try and close this gap and have more shark education programs out there and available and accessible to all. So we have developed various educational programs at Shark Spotters, quite a few over the few years. And I've mentioned earlier that it's not just about what we convey to the public, but how we go about doing that. And so we tailor our programs to our audience. And we also conduct various training and workshops as well at the same time to community groups, to local organizations. And our focus is also on creating hands-on learning material. If you have been part of any of our programs before, you can see that we look at experiential learning type of programs and activities that we engage with the groups. And we feel that this, in terms of the way we engage with the public, we want for them to instill a respect and a love for these specific species. So it's very important in the sense of how we go about doing that. And we want to ensure that the learning is not just informative, but it's also enjoyable. And so collaborating with local institutions enhances our research, our outreach, but also amplifies our impact. So just to carry on in terms of interactive engagement and how we go about, we love integrating games into our activities and as well as our presentations to make it a lot more fun, but at the same time educational. And so this, of course, engage participants a lot more effectively, by them leaving with a greater understanding around shark or shark conservation, but also having a love and a passion for these animals. And collaborative efforts, this, of course, helps amplify our outreach and our impact as well. So if you're looking at our outreach, particularly, so yes, we do informal education programs, but with our outreach, so we engage a lot with community groups, specifically schools, yes, but our target audience is community groups. And we utilize social media as well to raise awareness about shark conservation. So additionally, we also organize community events or collaborating community events and public talks that foster direct engagement. And collaborating with other organizations also allows us to maximize our impact, but at the same time as well, share resources. So digital storytelling, we have recently implemented visual reality headsets so that participants or individuals can get the experience that brings shark conservation to life, just like marine ecosystems in general. And then we conduct as well as beach cleanups at the same time and do career expos and exhibitions to foster direct engagement. So if we look at various ways of interacting with the public, there are key approaches to wanting to influence behavior. And not everything that we do sort of gets us to a point where we are influencing behavior, but it's a stepping stone. So when we, for example, if we look at engaging the public, we absolutely love storytelling, because storytelling has a way of, getting to people's personal narratives and emotional connections to the ocean, or that may be sharks, and inspire empathy and change. And of course, hoping that this would, inspire action and inspire change. We look at immersive experience as well. So, of course, people having opportunity to see sharks close, and encounter, able to, look at shark specimens and these various features and the shark about shark and the shark anatomy. Or even if people were visiting, for example, like the aquarium, seeing sharks there, this fosters a deeper understanding as well, having this sort of type of experience. We look at inclusive outreach. So not only looking at people that live within cities, coastal cities, but also people that live inland. And particularly over the busy festive season, you get quite a few people, number of people flock to the beaches. They flock to Cape Town to get our experience of the ocean and the mountains. And so it's very important that we also reach the audience, not only that live within coastal cities, but also inland at the same time. And of course, scientific inquiry, citizen science is a big thing when it comes to conservation or marine conservation, and engaging the public in data collection and research to actively involve them in conservation efforts. So these are the key approaches, or what we think is the key approaches in wanting to influence behavior around shark education. So if we look at our impact of our work, we have implemented educational programs that have made a measurable difference in community awareness. So we gather testimonials from participants to highlight the personal impact of our initiatives and all our education programs. And of course, we track feedback to continuously try and improve these programs. We want to see key things of how we can improve our various activities that we do on a daily basis. So the data and statistics further demonstrate increased awareness and positive behavioral change as well related to shark conservation. So we quite big on evaluating our programs that we have implemented, but also try and see what else we could integrate into our existing programs. So, like any initiative, we face challenges, and misinformation and funding limitations can impact our outreach efforts. Additionally, also, if we look at resistance from certain community segments, complicates conservation efforts, and this is just in general. So, for example, if you look at as well, perhaps local fishermen, some fishermen may see shark conservation efforts as a threat to their livelihoods, fearing restrictions or fishing practices or species they can target. And if you look at businesses dependent on fishing as well, like local businesses that rely on fishing, such as seafood markets or restaurants, might resist conservation initiatives. Others, for example, could be tourism operators or even cultural beliefs. And it doesn't make the education easier, but we still try, or even misinformed community members that have individuals influenced by misinformation or negative media portrayals of sharks might resist conservation education. So viewing them as unnecessary or harmful. And then if we look at growth opportunities and for us to expand on our educational initiatives, we try and leverage also on new technologies and integrating that into our program. It doesn't help much with limited funding, but we do try. And of course, we collaborate with various organizations regarding resource material at the same time. And some of the other, if we look at online resources, and we know this is something that we need to really strongly look into to broaden our research, especially trying to target those remote areas. And of course, technological engagement to enhance our educational outreach and engage with diverse audience. So we know this is something or an potential opportunities that we would really like to look into. So at the end of the day, what we do in terms of the education, and it's very fulfilling if we know that we are empowering the youth, and we are creating some form of inspiring action or inspiring some form of change. And yes, we want to have those shark ambassadors, and inspire the next generation of shark ambassadors or advocating for shark conservation through our programs and mentorship is what we try and do. We want to see shark conservation influences, if I may call it in such a way, that they could, form their own, have their own agency or ownership, or leading various forums when it comes to the youth. And of course, intergenerational collaboration. So they're bridging the gap between youth and experienced conservationists to create powerful synergy for driving change. And we don't want kids to feel, when you speak about science, they very hesitant to engage. And so we are also trying to, in terms of the way we engage, to not let it be as complex as it may seem, but to engage with them in such a simple and fun manner that they enjoy science and they enjoy doing maths and they are wanting to, pursue career opportunities within these fields. So of course, call to action. So it wouldn't have been, not okay for me to, you mentioned this, but as we know, getting involved in volunteering. So at Shark Spotters, we don't specifically have a volunteering program, but we do get a few individuals that are quite interested to know a little bit more about what we do at Shark Spotters, or in terms of how they could get involved. Of course, in terms of advocacy, we want more people to advocate for shark conservation because there are not many that do. Partnership opportunity, we big on collaboration, so we're always keen to collaborate with various organizations, or conservation organizations, or community groups as well. We do want to engage quite a few more school groups, and particularly inland school groups as well. And of course, integrating, conservation education into the curricula, and is something that we hoping. And then, of course, in the community awareness component, and in driving change for shark conservation through our education programs is what we do as well, but of course, amplifying that. So I'll keep the Q&As for last. So yes, thank you so much for your attention and listening to my story and what we do at Shark Spotters. And we, of course, everyone that has been involved in what we do at Shark Spotters, we do appreciate your support. So if you'd like to get in contact with me, those are my details. But of course, follow us on Shark Spotters. I'm sure you do already. Yeah, I'll wait for the Q's and A's when we are done. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Taryn. That was a very informative talk. Google Teams, MS Teams has told me that we have 4 minutes left, so I'm hoping it doesn't kick us out. But we do already have 3 questions in the chat. So the first one is from Varsha, who asks, what evaluation tools do you use for primary school learners? Any one of you could please answer that question.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question is, what evaluation tools do you use for primary school learners?
Okay, so can I go?
Yes, not a problem.
Okay. All right. So at Shark Spotters, what we do, also, it's very important for us to get a sense of the background information in terms of what the groups know or what they currently know around shark or just ocean conservation in general. And so when we engage with them during our programs, we conduct assessments. So we integrate, we do a pre-assessment before the program, and then we do a post-assessment after. So the pre-assessment is sort of just to get an understanding of what they know. So if it's specifically focused around shark conservation, we want to know in terms of the extent of how much information they know around shark conservation. And then we look at all the activities we're engaging with them throughout the day, specifically focus on that. And after the session, we look at post-assessment where we try and see, okay, have the information that we've engaged with them, has there been, in terms of their knowledge or the current knowledge, do they know a little bit more now about shark conservation, or is there any more information, new information or inspiring information that they've added to the existing knowledge around sharks? So we conduct a pre and post-assessment evaluation. In terms of other types of evaluation, we've engaged before with the teachers in terms of the extent. So when we tailor a program, we look at and particularly if it's a school group, we look at the grade or the syllabus that you are currently in, but the particular grade of the group, and the particular term, and of course link it to, if it's natural science or technology. And so we have engaged before with teachers in terms of, after a program that we've conducted with them, has there been any change in terms of the final mark or the marks in the natural science or technology, etc. So those are the sort of type of evaluation process that we have conducted before during our programs. I'm not sure if that sort of highlighted in terms of one of the ways we've evaluated, or if that's answered your question.
Do let us know, Vasha, if you're happy with that answer. Karen and Sapu, is there anything else that you'd like to add on or to answer that question? Okay, so we have another question from Kelsey, who asks, how do you cope with address individuals who, for whatever reason, are stuck in their ways and perhaps don't want to be educated, engage, and learn about conservation issues?
Okay, I can start with this one, but I'm sure everyone has something to say with this one. I think firstly, it's important to kind of figure out why they are so opposed. That's your route into how to handle the situation. But I think usually the people that are opposed are people of the older generation. Aski sees if there's, I don't mean everyone, but you get what I'm trying to say. So again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but magnifying what they already do usually helps. So kind of like identifying already what the practices are, or things that they don't even think about. Every home has that drawer that has plastic bags, or your grandma always carries a bag, or your mom always carries a bag when they're going shopping and all of that stuff. So we need to start moving away from being rigid when we deal with these things, because people are so tired of hearing these keywords: conservation, sustainability, Sometimes like we actually need to even maybe redefine these words and just have proper definitions of it. But finding the reason why will lead you to the roadmap on how to deal with it. I hope this helps.
Karen, Taryn, would you like to add on?
Yeah, I'll just add, and I wanted to say, Siphumelela, like I completely agree. I think you touched on a few points there, especially around the, being curious about what their story is, and really, asking the questions to learn about their experience as well, because maybe there are valid reasons why they feel a certain way. And the reality is that historically, conservation, the concept of conservation and what that actually means hasn't always looked the way it does now. And yes, there's still a long way to go in terms of how we also include people in the conservation space. But historically, a lot of conservation meant separation between people and the environment, prioritizing the environment over sometimes human well-being and life. And so it is, I think, just to maybe this is saying that it's complex. So it's being curious, being kind, and sometimes when as conservationists or as environmentalists, when we have a clear understanding of what we feel like the kind of issues are, or where we might be heading in terms of the world, we sometimes also worry that we don't have enough time to solve the problem so that we can, hand over a healthy planet to future generations. But sometimes it's also, we do need to slow down and form those connections, ask the questions, meet them where they're at, and see see how you can then discover a way to then, if there are misconceptions or barriers, are there ways of breaking that down, and showing them a way that sometimes what they believe conservation is, maybe the reality is that they are involved in that conservation and environmentally kind of positive actions as well. As Siphumelela said, where sometimes it's not about doing something else, it's about recognizing the things that are already being done.
Okay, fantastic.
Can I just add one more? I know
Yes,
we are
go
running
on.
out of time, so sorry. Karen, you really hit the nail there. And I just want to add again, the reason I put that thing of misconception in the definition of it, it's opinions and views based on the information that was available, or based, when I say information, it's not just, I'm not talking about just education or, based on whatever was happening at the time, that was created. So we need to also be very sensitive when we're dealing with people, because sometimes I feel like we just want to shove whatever. It's like what Karen said, like, we want to save the planet. What does that even mean, guys? Can we come back to earth and just be realistic and talk to people, in a humane way? So it's very important, even with us, to be sensitive and humble ourselves when we deal with people. The fact that you have the information, maybe that person does not have that, so bring that in a way that is words are escaping me, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Thanks.
No, you've explained yourself very well, Siphu. And I think specifically what you and Karen have been saying also kind of segues very well into Faiza's question on, do we have any programs, educational programs for the older generation adults, specifically because the stories that they have told as adults to young children are what instill fear into the younger generation and continue those misconceptions and this continued fear for shark species or the ocean as well. So do you have any programs that are targeting the older generation, or is that something maybe you're working towards as well?
Okay, I'll just speak to this one first. So at the Save Our Seas Foundation Shark Education Centre, a lot of our core focus is on the younger generation and on school-going learners and the youth. But the reality is that doesn't mean that we're not acknowledging that the adult education is important. It's just that that's where we're focusing those resources, because a lot of the time it's also to do with like at what point you interact and engage with somebody, and how it's almost in a way preventing that learner from getting to a point where it becomes more challenging to change their perceptions or provide opportunities that then might shift how they perceive the world and the environment and kind of the rest of their life as well. However, one of the programs that we have is called the Ocean Ambassador Program, and we have an ocean ambassador who works within a sort of a coastal community or suburbs that are relatively close to the coast. And that, for those of you who know Cape Town, it's in the Strandfontein and Bayview and Rocklands area. And what is quite incredible about that initiative is that the ocean ambassador that we have, who is an incredible marine advocate, is also somebody who cares deeply about the community that she was that she grew up in. And over the past I think it's 3 years now, she has built that relationship with them with the support of the Shark Education Center, but also where there, she conducts beach cleanups and she provides workshops. She finds ways to connect the community to the ocean, and that looks like whole families, and sometimes it's a whole range of ages. And what I think is so beautiful about her work in that context is how it is about that family learning, because sometimes it might be one of the children who's really excited and enthusiastic about getting involved, or it might be actually one of the adults who's now motivating their children to come and be part of something. But it's about then, as adults, building that community together, and having somebody like Kubra, who is our ocean ambassador, there to support them on that journey, and realizing that there's also so much to learn from those individuals, from those families, from the community, as to like why they might hold or have certain perceptions, or why they might sort of act, or what kind of ties into their behaviors as well. So that is an initiative, although it's really, like I said, it's taken years to build that relationship with the community to where it is now. But it's also incredible to see that growth and how the community is really taking on, and it also feels pride in the fact that they are part of a group that cares and can make a change as well.
Amazing. Yes, you can speak, Sopoon.
I thought you were gonna say time up. I just wanna touch again on what Karen was saying. It looks like we're buzzing off on each other quite a lot. What you also touching on is that representation element of having someone that speaks, that looks or stays with them. When we talk about representation, again, we're not just talking about color, but going back to the question that is being asked, the reality is the fact that, and I think everyone that deals with education and outreach can say this, working with kids is it's like the kind of like the best and the easiest route to kind of like create the impact that you want to create in a community, because the kids are already easy to teach and adapt and all of that, and they take everything with enthusiasm and bring it home, and they're the ones who will implement the recycling projects or the eco-brick projects or whatever you're doing. They're the ones who brings that with enthusiasm. And the parents, I mean, you kind of have to let go and do whatever your kid, and supporting them and all of that, and that's kind of how. But another element of how we're doing it with SRU and IOSHA is the fact that, so we have your younger ones, which obviously your preschoolers, right? We go to schools, and that's how we deal with your not your preschoolers, your primary schoolers, right? And then we have your high schoolers as well, which then we deal with them after school and weekends. But how we do that is we engage with parents first. So we have sessions with parents, and we, something similar to what I spoke about. We, show them the journey that we want to take with those kids, and obviously the potential and all of that. And yes, most are very scared when it comes to, hey, you're taking them to the ocean, who's going to be there? Are you sure you are able to swim? Those kind of things. And we laugh and we joke and all of that. But you see that the parents are not, how should I say, they don't block progress. They don't block all of those things, especially if you go to them and you speak to them kindly. And that's how we engage with parents. So in a way, it's indirect. We work with the kids, but we involve the parents in what we do. So you slowly see the adaptation taking place, right? And then the funny thing now, we have also implemented this year your young adults. Hey, when I tell you, young adults are already hard to work with when it comes to that changing in perception. Already hard. We work. We work when we deal with young adults that just trying to bring into the space, which shows you, if you are already a young adult and it's hard to change perception, how do you think you're just going to change the perception like that with a mama or a gogo? So we need to be creative in our ways in how to deal with that. But that's one of the ways we do it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That was very interesting to hear, actually, that young adults are a bit challenging. But I think to respect time, we are already 15 minutes over. And I do feel terrible to be cutting off the conversation right now. But I really do want to thank everyone who is still sitting in this webinar, still listening to you guys. You guys are absolutely engaging. And I think we can agree that it is a bit difficult to kind of cut these conversations short when what is being saying is so important and so impactful, and it's the kind of conversations that we need ongoing in the space as well. But I have to applaud everyone who's sitting here. You guys truly are part of the shark side. I know it sounds a bit culty, but we do appreciate that. And we appreciate all the speakers today, Taryn, Karen, Sopumelela, for giving us your time, for sharing all these important insights with the rest of the community. And please let the conversation not stop here. Let's continue having these conversations outside of this webinar. You can reach out to the respective speakers through their organizations. I will get permission to share their email addresses as well, so that if you have any other questions, like Faiza's question and Cindy's question, you can even contact them directly as well. But otherwise, thank you for joining the Shark Side. Do have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, and until the next webinar series. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.